YouTube? What the squig herd crap is going on? HeirofCarthage here, and yes, I got a squig herd attacking these Forsaken. I've got a big ball of Greenskins here in the wood, and I'm being attacked by some kind of weird chaos thing here. It looks like a chaos sorcerer of death, and then look, he's gonna just plow down with all of his flying units at once into my crimson killers. I brought these guys because I expected chaos to bring at least a little bit of infantry, but hey, why bring a balanced build when you can just bring a bunch of flying nonsense with a few token infantry and a giant? That's right, folks. No offense, of course. My opponent's free to bring what he wants, but I've noticed that part of the reason I haven't put up a lot of battles this week is I've only played a little bit. A little bit of screwed up animation there from the giant. I've played quite a few battles this week, and I say quite a few. I haven't played a lot. I've only gotten to play a little bit. I've played a few battles this week, and most of the ones I've played have been me fighting some kind of extremely gimmicky army. And people are really into gimmicky armies. Like, it seems like it's more fun for some people to just, well, how many times can I pick this gimmicky stuff and win than it actually is to figure out, like, different ways to enjoy the game, like actually using different units. I'm not saying that this guy is necessarily absolutely that way. I just met him in one match, but I'm talking about a practice that I see more commonly across multiplayer. So to get rid of his giant, since I didn't bring any archers, I just blobbed up on it with squigs, with black orcs, everything. My leaders, everything's going to put damage on him, and it's just going to overwhelm him. Because the Chaos player here brought this kind of gimmicky army, but he's not using it very well. Like, this blob right here would have been ideal for all these Manticores and his Chaos Lord on a flying monster to be swooping in, and he could have wrecked my whole army. But since he was over here busy just trying to get rid of the Crimson Killers and not really controlling this all that well, I was able to get rid of his giant, which was actually a somewhat key part of this army. The reason I say that is now that I've killed this giant, he doesn't have a lot of units on the ground that are very strong. So I can probably get rid of them. I had 5 squig herds as well, and I had just kind of deployed them all over. And part of the reason I had 5 squig herds is he readied up very quickly when I came into combat, so I didn't really have time to select the proper army. So I had already selected my infantry and my heroes, and so since he just kind of readied up on me real quick, I was like, well, you know what, I'm going to troll him and just bring like 5 squig herds with the rest of my money. So that's what I did. Now, the squig herds aren't super useful against what I have here, except for the fact that they are kind of keeping some of his flying units busy from time to time. So yeah, he's killed my Crimson Killers. They haven't gotten a lot done, but that's fine. Me getting a hold of his giant right there and basically destroying it was going to be pretty critical. And then I'm just going to back up into the woods here, where the woods will give me some defense against his flying units. Not a lot, but basically the idea with flying spam like this is people will try and take advantage of swooping all in on singled out units and destroying them while you try and chase them around. So what they want you to do is kind of break apart, attack their token infantry. I don't know if you saw it at the beginning or not, but he'd kind of spread out around my formation. And you can see here he's trying to focus out single units. They get very single-minded. Alright, I'm just going to focus out every single unit I can get a hold of, and then now he's probably just going to want to run away with his infantry, because if he loses all of his infantry, it's going to force his flying spam to the ground, where he'll most likely lose. So what he's going to attempt to do here is try and split me up. So even though it's somewhat dangerous, if I go into a giant blob, it's going to allow his guys to have monsters to be able to charge into a blob, but at the same time, if I split up, he's going to pick off individual units, which I just can't do. So right now I'm trying to chase some of his routing units. His giant routes again, but I bring up the Goblin Big Boss, the spider here, and I'm going to put a couple of ankle bites and kill the giant here. I'm trying to get rid of all of his ground units. I know that he has a few more Forsaken over here, because I want to force all of his flying units down to the ground, where hopefully I can gain an advantage. So when someone does do kind of a gimmicky army like this, you just got to think and do your best. And honestly, I like trying to make it as hard as possible for them, because they brought this gimmicky army probably hoping for an easy win. And so I like to just make it as hard as possible for him to get that win. Here I'm trying to pin down some of his Forsaken, because again, if I can take away his ground units, he's going to be forced to land. And you'll see that he's chasing my squigs around too, because my squigs are mopping up units, but this has effectively pulled all of his flying units, again, way far away from here, where I can start mopping up all of his ground units in a big blob. And so that's what I'm going to do. And he is going to come back and he is going to charge in, but I'm saving up my wah and a whole bunch of other things so that when he lands, I can jack the attack and the leadership up on my guys really high, causing maximum damage to his flying units. Not a guarantee that I can win this at this point, but the more of his ground units I mop up, the better, because it's going to potentially force him down, like I said. All he needs, though, is one beat-up ground unit hidden somewhere on the battlefield, and it won't affect him. So he's going to get ready to plow in. He'll probably be targeting my leaders. He's used Spirit Leech on my Orc War Boss, hoping to go for a quick knockout punch. And he did get a quick knockout punch on one of my Goblin Big Bosses early in the fight, which was incredibly annoying because I didn't get to use my Potion of Foolhardiness. This time, though, I was ready. And I readied it up on my War Boss so they couldn't rout, and I popped Wah and basically everything else he has. And you can see we're going to start causing some immense damage to his Chaos Lord. And his infantry units here get routed out. And his Lord is now stuck in this big ball, and I'm going to hopefully force him to have to use a healing potion or something like that. His Feral Manticores do immense damage on the charge, but they're not all that great after the charge. You can see this one wavers away and routes out, so if I can keep the leadership of my Greenskins up, I'll win. The problem with Feral Manticores is they cause terror, and you can see that my Goblin Big Bosses definitely succumb to that. So he routes out, he comes back, fortunately, right away. And his Chaos Lord gets a Potion of Toughness right at the right moment here. His guy was wavering. He doesn't actually have a Potion of Foolhardiness, so he gets very lucky there, and his Chaos Lord doesn't rout. Me, on the other hand, I've already had to use my potion, and now that terror effect from the Manticores is going to start taking its toll. So I'm pretty frustrated at this point because I don't really feel like I got outplayed here. My opponent just picked this gimmicky army and the terror and other stuff on all the Feral Manticores. He's able to just charge in, and if he takes out my leadership units, there's a decent chance the rest of my Greenskin army goes, especially since his Chaos Sorcerer here has Soul Blight, I believe, or something like that, that's going to debuff my leadership. He just used it. Yeah, it's Soul Blight, so he's taking away 8 leadership. This is a dangerous moment for me because my men are already going to have wavering leadership. Fortunately, my Lord didn't die. You see here, he can just chase my hero units like that spider. Anyway, so yeah, he's going to get away with this for a moment, but his Soul Blight wears off. My leader comes back, and of course he notices it right away because part of the gimmick of this army is knocking out all the heroes. This is one thing that kind of irritates me. He's pulling away from all my infantry here to come charge my Lord, and he doesn't take nearly enough damage, in my opinion, for trying to do this. And that might help a little bit of this pull-through type behavior, where you get these big monster blobs and just pull through. If they took a little bit more damage. Now, guys on Warhammer do take damage from pulling away, much more seriously than they did on, say, like Rome 2 or Attila, but I've noticed sometimes with these monsters, it doesn't seem to affect them all that much. Like, the Theory ran away and really didn't touch. Anyway, his Chaos Lord's going to run off. He's swinging back in with all of his Manticores. Again, I'm staying in the blob, because when he lands, I have a better chance of pinning him down, rather than letting him charge and get back in the air. What he should be doing, in my opinion, is maybe leaving one unit on the ground to do a little bit of fighting and then cycling in with the others, trying to get that fear effect started up. You can see it works over here. See where it says terrified? My guys are routing due to the terror, which is incredibly annoying. But if a unit's not immune to psychology, then that is a potential. And I do believe that the Black Orcs are immune to psychology. I could be wrong, though. Yeah, I don't think fear or terror works on Black Orcs. And you can see it's going to be a very close fight. His Lord, although he had that potion earlier, is already really beat up again. And Black Orcs, unless he can break their leadership here, they're going to do a considerable amount of damage. And these Feral Manticores aren't going to like him. So there's no bonus versus large on the guys that I have left. And you see here, when these units get singled out, this is what he wanted earlier. When units get singled out, he can keep this terror-causing unit near it, and it keeps my men from wanting to, or my orcs from wanting to come back. But this fight over here gets to be really close. My Black Orcs just kind of hammering it out versus all the different Manticores here. The one that has the Chaos Lord on top. Look at it, like jinking around everywhere trying to get out of the fight because it's routed. But basically, I cause all these units to rout, and if I kill this Manticore here, it could potentially swing the power bar, and it does. So that causes the rest of his army to rout. So I was pretty happy that his stuff routed here, to be honest, because I found that army to be a little bit annoying. And I was going to be a little bit irritated if he got away with it. But this is to be expected. So Chaos struggles to use their armies in a productive way, in the sense that, say, like the Greenskins, for instance, you can bring balance. You can bring, now of course I didn't here because I just threw in a ton of money at the end of my Squig Herd. I came expecting a bit of Chaos Infantry because they got cheaper, so I was like, well, my opponent will probably bring more Chaos Infantry now that they're cheaper, so I brought the Black Orcs. And then I brought some big uns to help counter any large or monsters we ran into. And then, of course, the heroes are a key part of any Greenskin army because otherwise their leadership isn't that great. Again, the Squig Herds I just threw in here at the end because he forced me to pick really fast, so I tried to pick some annoying units. And if you have a bunch of infantry, Squig Herds can certainly be annoying. But at the same time, like I said, my opponent's army was a little too gimmicky there, and it didn't pay off for him, though it nearly did. Very nearly did. I wanted to show you another battle where my opponent relies on a pretty gimmicky army. He's going to bring, it looks like 7 rangers, 2 rangers with great weapons, 7 gyrocopters, and a lord hidden in the forest back here. So again, this army is focused on flying and basically having enough units on the ground that he can hopefully use his gyrocopters to deal all the damage he needs to. And immediately I spot what he's trying to do, so I start targeting ranged units. And now I didn't immediately catch this ranger with great weapon. That's unfortunate. I should have charged it first because it actually has armor piercing, and it's going to do significant damage to my Black Knight. And again, one of these guys should have been targeting the ranger with great weapon, so a huge mistake here on my part. Should have gotten into these guys. My Black Knights over here are going to suffer because of it. I'm going to go ahead and push my guys up to the top of the hill and kill all the rangers and miners he has up on top of here. So again, recognizing this as a gimmicky army, I'm just going to have to try and deal with it as such. So I'm going to keep my army moving around. I'm going to just start killing his ground units one by one, and all I can really do is ignore his gyrocopters. I really wish that I would have ended up... I had 2 units of fell bats picked, but 2 units of fell bats wouldn't have been able to beat all these gyrocopters anyway, so it's probably a good thing that I didn't bring them. And all the extra cavalry, I decided to go with these Black Knights, and then in the loading screen I was like, I don't know, Black Knights are pretty crappy. I'm not sure I should have picked them, but then whenever it started I was like, yep, definitely should have picked the Black Knights. And I about half wonder if he wasn't expecting me to pick the Black Knights. He does have all these gyrocopters to help deal with cavalry, but he's still going to take immense damage with his rangers before he can ever make too much out of this. You can see his rangers with great weapons got a few kills and then got caught here by my White King. And I knew his lord was either back here or back here. But what I was doing, like I said, is I'm just focusing on some of his ground units. I hadn't seen these guys yet. He's pulled them up a little, but I haven't quite caught sight of them. And then I haven't caught sight of these guys over here either. So he's still got more ground units. I was hoping that I'd cleared up most of his ground units. My general is Strigoi, and I actually had a Mortis engine as well because the Dwarfs struggle to catch a Mortis engine. So if you can keep it clear of their artillery and skirmishers, you can do a lot of damage to the Dwarfs with the Mortis engine because of their lack of speed. So that was another thing I was banking on. Anyway, I got this Black Knight free. My White King is still trying to get these Rangers. You can see he's trying to pull the Rangers away from me. He wants to be able to use their armor-piercing weapons. Just threw a unit of zombies into these Rangers here just to keep them busy. And his gyrocopters are causing damage. I mean, they're definitely getting some work done towards my unarmored units and stuff like that. But the vampires regenerate, and it's going to be... See how it still says 9 and 9 on these Cryptors? Unless he actually takes a unit out, they'll just keep regenerating, and they'll regenerate a lot. So this is kind of nice for me in the sense that I don't think his gyrocopters can cause enough damage fast enough. He should have used some of his bombs and stuff to help actually destroy unit models, maybe. Because if he doesn't destroy unit models, I just get to keep regenerating for those units. This Black Knight got a walking charge order for some reason, which is really annoying. So yeah, anyway, those guys are shooting my White King in the back, but we're all good. Some of his units became visible over here, and I had originally thought about going back here and looking for his lord, but I was like, nah, I'm going to take these cavalry and the White King over here, and I'm going to start wiping out all these units. And when I saw these units over here too, I was originally running my army. You can see I'm moving it over into these woods where I was going to kind of just hide out from his gyrocopters under some cover and try and replenish it off. But I was like, nah, you know what? I'm just gonna come around and I'm gonna start destroying these guys. And eventually I decided to turn my army and swing over this way as well because I want to kill, like I said, all of his land-based units, and that'll force him to either concede defeat or bring his gyrocopters down. And gyrocopters on the ground will die a very certain and quick death. He has more rangers with great weapons pop up. I'm not going to let these guys throw their axes, so I immediately get into them. And then my Black Knights are going to come over here. These are really cool looking units, the Black Knights. But yeah, nothing we can't take care of here. So I'm going to use my White King to keep the miners busy while my Black Knights take care of the skirmish units. He's got another unit of miners back here. Like I said, I think it's about this time when I decided to start bringing this army over here. Though they were all hard grouped, and I didn't realize that they were all going really slow because of the zombies. So here in a little bit, I decouple the zombies from the Cryptors, and then I decide that I'm going to take Strigoi Ghoul King, who's over here, and Strigoi has been taking some injuries from the gyrocopters, so I just started healing him up. Again, you can do quite a bit of healing. See up to 2,700 hit points worth of healing on Strigoi, which is almost his full health. So it's a good way for me to keep him alive and continue to be annoying. I brought Strigoi against the Dwarfs because he was like the only armor-piercing lord. Though I don't know that that means he's a great lord against the Dwarfs. I don't know, I like him. He's a pretty good one. Another good lord you can sometimes use well against the Dwarfs is going to be Manfred with his Winds of Death. Unless they somehow nerfed Winds of Death without stating it, it should be quite good. These Rangers are going to get wrecked. Again, the Black Knight's going to come in here and do a lot of damage. So I think me bringing all this cavalry ended up being one of the more annoying vampire picks that I could have brought. He was probably hoping that I would have brought fewer units of more expensive cavalry. And then in that case, I would have been in pretty big trouble, because he would have been able to have multiple units firing on them while they tried to take out a single unit. A Flying Lord would have been a little bit risky here too, because there's enough gyrocopters that as he tried to fight them, the others could shoot him. So that could be a bit problematic. Yeah, here in a second, I think I realize it, and I go ahead and decouple the Cryptors, because I was like, why are these guys going so slow? You can see here my White King's doing a good job. And so my idea with Strigoi was, I was like, well, I mean, if it's Ungrim Iron Fist or something back here, I'm probably going to die. But I was like, I do have a spell, and I had enough magic to summon a unit of Cryptors. And I was like, if I find Ungrim, I'll just summon the Cryptors, and then hopefully between Strigoi and the Cryptors, then I should be able to deal with the Dwarf Lord. So that was my thought. And I think at this point he sees that I am wiping out his ground units, though he still has this one back here. If he just ran and hid that in the woods, it would actually buy him a lot of time. But, I mean, this isn't going very well for him. He's just not causing enough damage to my infantry units. He's been shooting at different units rather than focusing it on units. And it's been spreading his damage out. And that's exactly the kind of thing I need as the vampires, is to spread all that damage out. And here you go. Strigoi is on to the hiding location of the Dwarf Lord. Very dwarfly of him to just sit back here in the woods and hide out while his air forces go do the work. You can see Strigoi, he's like, I'm coming in here to kick someone's face in. Anyway, so the dwarf player admits defeat there. I think he was coming up on it sooner or later. So yeah, I actually hadn't had a whole lot of luck with the vampires. They took a nerfing on Graveguard, and their Blood Knights also took a nerfing. So the vampires actually lost some power in this last patch, whereas like the dwarfs gained a considerable amount of power. In fact, they have been actually pretty frustrating to beat as of this patch, just because of all the different buffs they can give their unit. I still don't necessarily put them in the top tier, and part of the reason I don't do that is it may be difficult for me to beat them at the moment. But I mean, I don't think that really skilled players are going to struggle to beat down the dwarfs still with Empire or vampires, though again, the dwarfs are better now. They are definitely better. There's no doubt about it. Some of the units that they've brought and some of the abilities that have been brought in definitely make the dwarfs a lot stronger opponent. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed these battles. Like I said, it's been a little bit gimmicky for me this week. Not the end of the world. When you're going to be playing quick battles, you just got to learn to deal with stuff like that. Sometimes you're going to lose to it. Every now and then you'll win. But that's, like I said, just part of the expectation when you're doing a quick battle. Hope you all enjoyed it. HeirofCarthage signing out. I will see you next time.